You don't want to see me upset. Believe me.
Oh, you want to fuck with me? You think you know bad, huh? You're a fucking choir boy compared to me. A choir boy!
Hey everybody, welcome to Real Ripe and Real Rotten. This is a podcast, if you're unfamiliar, we look at the highlights and the lowlights of someone's career in Hollywood, be it an actor or director. And we're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger for the past couple of days. We're going to continue that streak with End of Days, his lowest rated movie in his Rotten Tomatoes career. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. How could you forget or overlook one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's greatest on-screen characters, Jericho Kane?
Jerry Cocaine. It's a
Jericho Kane, which is one of the worst movie names I've ever heard.
Did they actually say his full name at any point in the movie?
I don't think so.
I was listening for it, and I think they might call him like Mr. Kane and then Jer at certain points, but no one calls him Jericho Kane, I don't think, in one string of syllables.
There is a point in the movie where Robin Tunney all of a sudden starts yelling his name. I think it's in the train sequence. And the first thing I thought was, I don't think he's ever told her what his name is.
Yeah. You don't have to. It's announced. This is End of Days. It's the worst one. We just talked about Terminator, which is the best film. It's at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. End of Days is on the opposite end of the spectrum for Mr. Schwarzenegger. It's at 11% on the tomatometer, 32% audience score, but it's 11% critical score. And to show you how poorly regarded this is the Rotten Tomatoes blurb. With the millennium approaching, a series of disturbing signs suggest that Satan, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, has returned to Earth and is walking the streets of New York City. It seems that Satan needs to find a woman who will bear his child as the time for the arrival of the Antichrist draws near. So, they didn't bother getting the facts right about the movie.
Nope.
Not many critics cared for it. It's at 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is an overblown thriller with formulaic action scenes and poor acting. Tell us what you really think. So, you'd seen this one before, obviously.
I believe I saw this in the theater with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
His choice or your choice?
It might have been a mutual decision because this... I don't know if I've told this story here. I may have. Years before, for my birthday, we were on our way to karate class, and he said, "Do you want to skip karate and go to the movies?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I want to do that." Mm-hmm. And we went to the movie theater, and he said, "Do you want to see Cliffhanger, or do you want to see the Super Mario Brothers movie?" And me, in my infinite wisdom, as a 9-year-old or whatever, said, "I want to see the Super Mario Brothers movie." And I think maybe I was trying to make up for that by making him sit through that. But
those two movies came out at the same time? Cliffhanger and the Super Mario? Wow.
Yeah. Yep. They were in theater at the same time, which was my, I want to say like my 10th birthday or something.
Yeah. I mean, you would have been, what? You would have been 15 for this one, I guess? End of Days, 99?
Yeah. This was ninth grade. Yeah. I think I went to see... The movies that stand out as movies I saw with my dad are this, The Rock, The Matrix.
Oh, wow.
And I think I was too young to see Terminator 2. I think I saw that on video.
That's not bad.
But yeah, those are the three big ones I remember seeing with my, outside of Mario Brothers, of course.
Yeah, I only remember watching Star Trek Generations with my grandparents. My grandparents took me to that one. But
I went to see Star Trek 6 with my grandmother. It's a very fond memory I have.
Oh, wow. That was her choice, obviously, I think, for that one to wrap up the franchise. End of Days is a 1999 American action horror film directed by Peter Hyams and written by Andrew W. Marlowe. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger with Gabriel Byrne, Robin Tunney, Kevin Pollak, Rod Steiger, C.C.H. Pounder, Derek O'Connor, Miriam Margolyes, and Udo Kier in supporting roles.
I would like to say that this movie feels like an AI creation made specifically for me.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And
I know you've been waiting 4 years to talk about this movie. Yeah.
Much as the priests and Satanists have been waiting 1,000 years for the return of their overlord.
I've been sitting in my Vatican council chamber all night waiting for you to come in and tell me exactly what has happened so I can immediately send out the ninja priests.
But like, I can't think of any other instance in which Udo Kier and CCH Pounder would be in the same movie.
Yeah,
I fucking love it. This is a terrible movie.
It's a strongly international cast. It's got someone from every country on the planet, I think.
Yeah,
in this movie. The film follows alcoholic, of course he's an alcoholic, former New York Police Department Detective Jericho Kane, Schwarzenegger, they got this right on Wikipedia, who, after he saves a banker, Byrne, from an assassin, finds himself embroiled in religious conflict and must protect an innocent young woman, Tunny, who is chosen by evil forces to conceive the Antichrist with Satan. So, yeah, I had seen this one before. At least watching it this time, the entire time I was watching it, I had the vague feeling that I'd seen this before. Mm-hmm. Although I can't be certain that's the case, or if I just think that it so strongly resembles the stuff that it's being influenced by that it's reminding me that I've seen it. I think I've seen this, though. It seems like a movie I would have seen at this point in time, but I did not remember much about it. And honestly, I was mostly semi-curious about where your opinions were going to come from, because you were, as we say, it's not even really a joke. It's like the 4 years that the podcast hasn't been going, it ended on this, and you were sort of annoyed that we ended before we got to Schwarzenegger's End of Days, and now we're here to talk about it. And honestly, I guess I was uncertain where you were going to start that conversation from. So why don't you start the conversation about End of Days, and I can kind of go from there, because I guess my main point is that I don't have a tremendous takeaway about this movie.
Yeah.
Other than sort of like a lot of tropey comments that you can kind of make about very bad movies, which I think that this is. But I'm curious if you have a deeper thing that you want to touch on first.
Well, the first thing I want to touch on is how amazing the trailer for this movie was.
Yep.
And for one reason in particular, which is something they do in the movie, which I actively fist pumped when they did it. In the trailer, you see the year 1999 kind of like floating back into the blackness.
Yeah.
And then the 3 9s flip over into 3 6s.
Yeah.
And it's fucking gorgeous.
And the priest does it in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, this is like a movie made by AI specifically for me, and I mean that in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Because it has all of these elements of stuff that I like, but the way that they are put together is just like, it's got 15 fingers and the eyes are in the wrong place and none of the colors make any sense and the words are all fucked up. Like it's just like such a mishmash of other movies that are much better, smushed together. And since Arnold Schwarzenegger is in it, he has to shoot a gun at the devil. It's I don't know how a movie like this could simultaneously be so on paper something I would want to see, but also in practice so fucking boring for most of it.
Yeah.
It's like 55 minutes of Gabriel Byrne walking around the streets of New York.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very long, it's over 2 hours, which is surprising.
But on the other hand, he also plays a devil who has sentient gasoline piss.
Yes.
So I'm of two minds about End of Days here, because it's got some amazingly stupid, fun stuff in it, but it is also just like, you can look at this movie and just, you can see the source code for everything they're doing.
Yeah.
The thing that stood out to me the most was I was really surprised at how much latter Schwarzenegger is kind of just the same movie, like post Terminator 2.
Yep.
Excuse me. Like once Terminator 2 comes out and it's Terminator 2 is, he's the guy and he has to save the girl. That's basically every movie after, well, I mean, not everyone, but it becomes a trend. Like this is Schwarzenegger is the guy and he's got to save the girl. Eraser is Schwarzenegger's the guy, he's got to save the girl. I don't remember what The Sixth Day is about. I'm going to say Collateral Damage probably has a girl in it that he has to save.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's weirdly, it turns into this trope for him when I feel like before this, he did a pretty good job for the most part of making his movies distinct, if not unformulaic. You know, like you've got some like Commando. Well, I mean, even Commando's pretty weird, but like he's got some that are formulaic actioners, but they're always pretty unique.
Yeah,
and it's not, you don't see him doing a lot of the same thing up until around this point where I think even at the time I walked out of this movie thinking, I think we might be done with Arnold.
Yeah. I think the turning point is Eraser is the turning point for him. I think because True Lies came out in '94 after Terminator 2 and Last Action Hero, and then True Lies, and then he had Junior, which I'm willing to forgive as kind of like still being kind of possible in the first half of his career, but after that it really does fall down. The thing you had mentioned it as being like more of an Arnold decision. I was wondering if his career shows you exactly when Hollywood flipped, in like when Hollywood realized that, like, because like he started out in the 70s and the 80s, right, with these like very classic action movies or like buddy comedy type movies.
Yeah.
And what I see happening more than Schwarzenegger making bad decisions is that the way that you make an action movie changed in the middle of his career. And his better movies are in his early half of his career. And the thing that leads me to think that is that, like, for everything I praised in Terminator in the last podcast, this movie does the opposite of it. And I thought it was really interesting. It's like Arnold has to act in this, right? That doesn't work out a lot of the time. I thought that the direction in Terminator was like Academy Award winning, and I thought the direction and editing in this is terrible. Like,
Peter Hyams is no slouch. He's been around for a while, and he's done some decent. Well, he doesn't do a lot of amazing stuff, but he did The Relic, which is pretty good.
Yeah, he did Time Cop, right?
Time Cop. Yep.
See, and one of the reviews I was reading just said that this would have been a better movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme in the lead. And I kind of agree with that, because I think that this is just a B movie with a high budget attached to it. And
my girlfriend actually said this should be Bruce Willis. And I was like, yeah, it
Willis.
Should be.
Interesting. Yeah. Do I agree? I'll have to think at this point in like 1999, you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the kind of character that it is and the kind of story. It feels weird. It's a weird story for Arnold.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree. I definitely agree with the Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like, make this like a shittier B movie, and I think that it's more what it wants to be. But Hyams is Arnold didn't like the director choice, I guess, was what I was reading. He was upset with it. I guess James Cameron recommended Hyams, and they thought it was not a bad choice, at least at that point. Or Schwarzenegger was saying that afterwards. But to come back to it, it's just like, I think that it's directed remarkably, or it's edited the same as Terminator, but it's done much worse. So it's a lot of fast cuts, but there's a lot of times I can't tell what's going on in the action scenes in this movie. There's a lot of what I just consider to be sort of needless not even jump cutting. It's sort of cutting closer on people's faces for no gain in storytelling traction. So it's like editing and cutting just to keep the pace up with what's going on.
Yeah.
And just in the contrast of Terminator's edits are so clean, and it's like it just shows you the event so quickly and from different angles, but it feels better. And also, Terminator wisely avoids too much exposition and lore. This is just all exposition and lore, and it's not even very interesting. I just thought it was really fascinating how it's totally the opposite of Terminator. And I just see it as he's now in the era of action movies are sort of big budget nonsense vehicles that just are more built around like set pieces and small ideas that you cobble together into a script, rather than something that feels like a coherent story that you start at the start point and you end at a finish point.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting for him because his peak is clearly Terminator 2, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And after that, he starts to get a little bit more meta with Last Action Hero, and to a lesser extent, if you want to go, you could say True Lies is fairly meta. in or self-aware anyway. But what's happening after Terminator 2 basically is the kind of action star shifts. And that is more or less, I think, would the first one be The Rock? I can't remember if The Rock is the first one, but it shifts the action star from the muscle dude to the nerd.
Yeah.
And I think that really throws Arnold for a loop because everything starts pushing that way. And like, where does that leave him? Not only has he done literally everything you could possibly do in the genre, but
or you have to be an actor who can deliver Shane Black's dialogue lines, like, you become,
I guess you could say maybe it starts with Lethal Weapon in the late 80s, like 87.
Yeah.
And, you've got Bruce Willis, Die Hard, which is 88 or 87, 88. So it kind of starts there, but it really kind of solidifies in the 90s when you get Nicolas Cage in The Rock, which is one of the greatest action movies, probably top 3 action movies of the 90s.
Yep.
And then you've got Kurt Russell doing his best impression of a normal guy in Executive Decision.
Yep.
But it's still, that's tough because it's still Kurt Russell.
Yeah. Harrison Ford.
Air Force One, and some of the other things that he's doing. The Jack Ryan movies. You've got Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise. So it's starting to shift back to a different kind of actor. And I think Arnold just doesn't really know where to go. And so by this point, he's just kind of flayed because everything after True Lies, action wise, until he goes off and becomes a governor, is very high concept action. It's not just an action movie. It's not just Commando, where it's about a guy trying to get his daughter back. It's Eraser, which is about a guy who fakes people's deaths in order to remove them from witness protection or whatever it is. It's this, where it's Arnold Schwarzenegger versus the devil. At the turn of the millennium. Or it's The Sixth Day, where he's a clone. Or it's Collateral Damage. I've never seen it, but I have to imagine it's probably a little bit more traditional. But I think that's just...
Yeah, he avenges his son and wife's deaths at the hand of a guerrilla commando.
Sure, that's about as simple as you can get. But, he does these like very high concept sci-fi things that don't work. And he just kind of...
Then it's sequels, Terminator and Expendables after that.
Then he gets back into Terminator 3.
Yeah.
And so you've got this movie, which is a very interesting time capsule for a number of reasons, it being kind of the end of the Schwarzenegger thing, but also playing off of a lot of very 90s stylings. And also it's a Y2K movie before Y2K happened. So there's still,
fear.
it's fear built into there. And so like you've got this really interesting curiosity of film history that is not particularly good. I would say it's actively bad. But it does have a couple moments that are kind of nice. I think the train sequence is really good. That I think once they get into that, it's good for like 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then
you're talking about the ending train sequence?
Yes.
Okay.
Then once the demon leaves Gabriel Byrne's body, it just turns into mush, much like his body. But like I thought that sequence was great. That was really the only action sequence that I thought was any good. Robin Tunney, very 90s actress, is in this. I could never really quite figure out why she never clicked more.
Yeah.
She was in The Craft. That's really The Craft is the only thing I really know her from. But she pops up in stuff all the time in the 90s, and then she just kind of like went to TV, I think.
I think she lost her position to Winona Ryder. They're very similar to each other to me.
Interesting.
Like Winona Ryder took there's only space for one in the Winona Ryder role for actresses, and she won, I think, against her.
Yeah, Winona Ryder's a much more interesting actress, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a strange movie, but it's like, you can watch this movie and they're lifting stuff directly from True Lies. Like there's a part, Kevin Pollak's character is basically Tom Arnold.
Yeah.
Even down to the point that they sit in a white van, which is what they do for a good portion of True Lies. There's Rosemary's Baby in this.
Kevin Pollak is, I generally don't have anything against him, But what a thankless role this was. It's a tough position to be the wisecracking sidekick when you have no wisecracks written for you and you have to just kind of fumble through everything. What a thankless job that he had for this one. Yeah.
But yeah, you've got Gabriel Byrne doing the 90s devil thing that they do in every one of these movies where it's like, what if, this is going to blow your fucking minds, what if the devil wore a knee-length peacoat and had nice hair? Like, that's it. That's all. I think he's pretty good in this, given what he has to do.
Yeah.
I thought he's good in the scene with him and Arnold. I thought he was really nice in that scene. But, it's like, for some reason, in the 90s, the devil was just like a well-dressed guy who just walked around.
No, and because when I think about it, like, I think of The Devil's Advocate, right? And this was a movie that, as I was watching it, I had to pull up Wikipedia to like compare. I was like, is this movie drawing inspiration, or did it do a shittier version first of everything, right? And
yeah,
from everything that I was pulling up, be like Devil's Advocate or Seven or anything like that, this came years after, and it just does a much worse version. So, like, Devil's Advocate was kind of the surprising one. I could have thought that, or I could have seen the argument that Devil's Advocate came after this movie and was like a better version, but it didn't. It's really, and I think that's where you get this idea that, like, watching this, you're just reminded of many better movies that do, like, not that Devil's Advocate is great, but it does a much better version of what this devil character is.
Oh, absolutely. I would also argue that Devil's Advocate is great.
Is it?
Also very long movie.
It is very, it's very long. This one's long too, but it's a. So Gabriel Byrne in this one, right? I was actually mostly interested in him. I think that his, you remember when on the Rotten Horror Picture Show we just did Green Room together, right? And I was talking about in that one how Patrick Stewart's acting performance let me down a little bit. In Green Room, I was expecting more from Stewart as to what Gabriel Byrne does in this movie, if that makes sense. So what I think that Byrne does, and what I think that, like, what I would qualify great actors would do, is you get this movie and you read your script lines, and you know,
oh, Jesus Christ.
you know that your character is ultimately not anything at all, right?
Yeah.
My go-to for this one is Bane from Dark Knight Rises as well. Like, you're like, there's not a lot going on here. So what do I, as an actor, need to do to put a stamp on this to make people want to watch my performance when I'm not saying or doing anything, right? And I think that Stewart can't do that as an actor, interestingly. But Byrne can, and he does it here. And his performance as the devil is like both laugh out loud funny, and it's the only moment, his conversation with Arnold where he like makes him relive his family being killed by those people, is like the only moment in the movie that pretends to be about anything. But I just like the Byrne character is also completely bizarre. Like, why is he chosen in the first place? Besides the fact that he has a full length peacoat and stuff like that. There's no reason for it. It's a weird performance, but it's one that makes you watch it and you go like, oh, someone's trying in this, as opposed to the horrible scenes of like Arnold, Pollock, and Pounder talking to each other is some of the worst fucking acting I've ever seen in my life.
I'm really disappointed that CCH Pounder doesn't ask Arnold and yell at him, what kind of errands does he have them running for the DA?
Does she ever play a non-police chief character?
I don't know. She's in RoboCop 3. She plays one of the rebels, I think, in RoboCop 3.
She does? Wow.
I believe so. I could be completely wrong, but I think she's in that. Anyway,
it's a movie that,
but mostly cops, yes.
I appreciate when actors recognize that the role is stupid and they just kind of go all out. Like I haven't seen Devil's Advocate enough to compare whether I think the Pacino performance is better than the Byrne performance. I think Pacino's better.
Pacino definitely is putting his whole ass into it.
Byrne's like taking scenes off.
The best thing about fucking Devil's Advocate is when he goes into the whole bit at the end where it's basically like 10 minutes of Pacino just monologuing as the devil.
Yep.
They clearly have him set up next to this really intense hot light that he works as like a theatrical act special effect where the bigger he goes, the more he leans into this light. It's fucking amazing.
Do you think this is a horror movie? Does this belong? Would this make it on the Rotten Tomatoes list? They call it a horror movie.
I would not put it on the list. No, I think it has horror elements. Like Satan manifesting as a giant winged demon is a pretty horror movie thing.
I only think the only horror section to me is the Seven ripoff where they find the priest's apartment.
Yeah.
Why does he have the picture of the girl in a jar in his fridge?
Because it's weird. That's the thing. All of this stuff, it's a movie made by AI. It's all stuff that's only being done because it's referencing better stuff.
Yeah.
It's there. All the stuff with Gabriel Byrne is very weird because, as you're saying, like, why is this guy, why does Arnold Schwarzenegger, why is he protecting this guy?
Yeah.
Like, that's something that they do only to get him in the same frame as this character.
Yeah.
So he can be shot at. And like, it all feels so convoluted and like really hackneyed as far as the way it's put together.
The weirdest thing to me about the introduction of Byrne, right, is that in a better movie, I would expect that you get a glimpse of what the Byrne character is before he's possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
And they don't. All that you see is he sits down at a table and says, "Excuse me." And he stands up and he goes to the bathroom, and then the Satan possesses him, and he comes down and grabs some tit and kisses people. But what's weird is, like, in the setup for that, I wasn't sure what his relationship to that woman was either. Like,
I don't know.
Not that this really matters, but is that like his boss's wife, or is that his wife, or is it his girlfriend? I couldn't. It's poorly established, and it also, I guess you don't need it because you're dealing with Satan, but the character that Byrne plays before he's possessed is a pure nobody. He has no characterization to him whatsoever.
Totally. Like, I don't know, is he Robin Tunney says that she's been seeing him in her dreams since she was a little kid.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, like, is this guy part of the coven? It doesn't seem that way. It would make sense if he was. Is he just some rando? I guess he's just a random guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got to say, as far as character introductions go, walking out of the bathroom, lighting a cigarette, just grabbing a handful of boob, and then walking outside and blowing up an entire restaurant of people is pretty good.
I like that he delicately covers up her breast, too, after he's done.
Yeah.
He just kind of gently pulls it back.
As I was watching that sequence, I felt the universe telling me that the director fought every instinct he had to not put in sympathy for the devil over that sequence. Like, it was playing in my head. I was like, it's the cheapest move. Feels like that they must have like dropped that in as a temp track or something and didn't have the money or something, because it feels like that's what they're going for.
So did you find it to be more effective as a... The other scary moment is I did find that when they kidnap Christine the baby in the beginning and they bring her to the basement with nurses, I thought that was kind of creepy. It's a little bit... It gets borderline stupid, but making the baby drink snake blood is bizarre, but it's a creepy idea anyway.
As far... I didn't... It's not a particularly scary movie. Like, it's...
No, I don't... I wouldn't... There's not a single moment in it that scares me. Not even a jump scare.
I think a big problem is the way that they use Arnold in this, because they try to rough him up. They try to make him this suicidal, down on his luck guy. but he's still Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He still hangs from helicopters and chases after people who are leaping across buildings. Yeah.
Like there's a sequence where he goes into his headquarters, which is basically just the headquarters from True Lies, and I have no idea where this place is in the city, I guess. And gets a commando level amount of guns.
Yep.
That he then uses to shoot the devil for the next 25 minutes. And it's like, I just can't, these two things as they are presented to me here are very incongruous and they do not work together.
No, it's a good example. I mean, because it's set up with like the, because I also get Constantine vibes from it. I don't know if Constantine came after this or if it came before it. It came after it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comic book character didn't, but the movie did.
Yeah, the comic must have been before it. But there's that kind of, like he's set up to be this sort of the same thing as Constantine, which is like semi-suicidal, just doing stuff until he can die from the stuff that he does. Mm-hmm. And so they set him up as that's his character. But he's still, as you're saying, like still a Schwarzenegger action hero on the side of it. Like he's a ex-cop hired gun who somehow can afford helicopters to fly through the city and like hoist him around. And at the end, you're saying he goes in and he gets guns from his workplace. No one really brings up any. There's no like issue with this in the way that the Constantine character doesn't feel like he's a larger than life character who can just go in and get all this ammunition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason I like I haven't seen the Constantine movie in a long time. I've never read the book or anything, but it's like there's the way that this movie suffers is that anything that is the interesting angle that you could take, which is about like the down on their luck guy who has to kind of make a deal with the devil in the way that Constantine does. So like, it's like you're familiar with the devil in a way. Mm-hmm. They don't do that here. The action isn't impressive enough where I go like, oh, this is just a great action movie where I can watch it. And it doesn't do enough of the creepy Seven stuff to make that interesting either. You know, it's all these weird things combined into one mishmash of something that isn't particularly satisfying to watch, unfortunately. And every other movie that it steals from, as you said, does it better.
Yeah, I think what's this whole era of these 80s action guys, I find very fascinating. I am very fascinated in general with like pop culture eras that are very much in transition, and one era gets left behind while another one ascends.
Yeah.
Like, I don't particularly care for the music of this era, but one of the most interesting era of music for me is the what I call the Wayne's World era, where it's right after hair metal got nuked by grunge.
Yeah.
But you had all of these metal guys who are now trying to figure out where they fit into this new music. So it evolves into this weird new subculture where it's like everybody still has long hair, but it's all very straight. And there's a lot of like cut off jean shorts and flannels tied around the waist. And they're still playing heavy stuff. But like, perfect example, look up a picture of the band Ugly Kid Joe.
Yep.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's this like early 90s, 90, 91, 92 era of hard rock music that just feels like it doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Yep.
And similarly, this era of the 80s guys, I find very interesting because Bruce Willis figured it out. Bruce Willis figured out how to do both and how to evolve.
Yep.
Schwarzenegger did not. Schwarzenegger just kind of kept doing the same thing. He made one move after T2. He goes back to Junior, which is kind of trying to trade on the success of Twins. That doesn't work. I actually don't even really count Batman and Robin because I feel like that's the move anybody would have made at that point because those movies were huge and whatever, but like it's not a great move. He's probably one of the better parts of that movie, but
he was not uniquely drawn into that either. That sucked in everybody, that sucks in other actors as well.
Yeah. And like Stallone Stallone is really interesting because Stallone doesn't want to pivot, but he knows how to.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he pivots, he reminds everybody that he's actually really good at what he does. And then he immediately destroys all that goodwill with like the worst movie you've ever seen. So it's this, and Van Damme just starts doing team ups with Dennis Rodman and whoever, and then he ends up making a name for himself on the straight to video market. But the Schwarzenegger Stallone thing is so fascinating because Schwarzenegger is Arnold Schwarzenegger, full stop. You can't do anything with him at this point in his career where part of the gimmick isn't this is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Correct.
Sylvester Stallone has the actor gear that Arnold doesn't have.
Yep.
Sylvester Stallone can do Copland and make everybody go, holy shit, I forgot Sylvester Stallone's a really good actor.
Right.
He puts on a couple pounds, and all of a sudden he's a transformative performance, you know? But Arnold can't do that, and he doesn't know how to do it, at least not at this point. I don't know if he's ever really figured out how to do it. But
now, looking at his filmography, I don't think he has.
And this is a really long-winded way of me saying, I wonder if this would have been more successful if they didn't make it an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and they did something darker and something a little bit less bombastic from the Schwarzenegger angle.
Absolutely. I think the casting of this movie is what caused it to be a failure. Like what I think that from a script perspective, what I think this wants to be is it wants to be a Seven-esque detective story with a little bit of like, I guess I'd call it like B movie cheese on top of it. Like it's hard to avoid the Vatican being portrayed as if they're like the CIA and take it seriously.
Oh, baby, you haven't seen the Pope's Exorcist yet, have you? It's fucking unreal. They do this exact thing, but it's way better.
I can imagine. I agree that the Schwarzenegger aspect, because like you were mentioning that you like the action spectacle at the end. The end is when it starts going into the action spectacle. I was like, how much is left in the movie? And it's 30 minutes left. And I was like, oh man, there's a lot left here to go. But it feels like throwing Schwarzenegger the bone at that point as to we know this is what you do, only solidified in my mind that that's not what I wanted this movie to be at all. Yeah. And it's a half hour of it at the very end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. If Arnold wanted to use this as a style shift, he needed to go 100%. You can't put a scruffy beard on him and have him make the most disgusting milkshake in the world and have him go, yeah, I'm a normal person like everybody else. It's like, no, it's you need to go the full changeover with him and take the guns out and make this a much more grounded thing. But it's difficult because he's fucking Superman.
Yeah, and he's not a great actor either. So it's hard with his like, because the moment that could happen is the moment in here where Satan makes him relive the murder of his wife and child, right? Like that moment is supposed to land and be heavy.
Yeah.
I was struck by the directorial choices where they show him this whole flashback and Satan is like sort of giving him this deal of like, if you tell me where the girl is, you can have your family back. And then when Schwarzenegger doesn't give him that information, he makes him relive the murder of his family.
Which is fucking preposterous.
Which is an incredibly strange murder sequence.
Just 15 comic book villains busting through the door.
Take them into the bedroom and kill them in a different room.
Apparently explode them into dust because he walks in and the whole room is covered in blood.
But it's
like Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street.
It was like there's blood. There's blood.
So what did they do to this poor woman and child?
There's blood everywhere. He goes in, he does his dramatic fall to his knees thing, right? And he like punches the mirror. The directorial choice to move from that scene back into the plot of the movie is they leave the bedroom and it's as though he had not just watched his family be killed in front of him. Like he snaps out of it and it goes back into the sort of cartoony Arnold character that is a staple of his later things, where he's like, "Yeah, Ossington, what are you doing here now?" Like he has like a joke.
I'll throw you out the fucking window.
And he comes up with a joke at that point, and it's like, in a serious movie that is trying to do the Seven thing, you can't have this hard juxtaposition between the two things. Like, he has to sit with the sadness of his family death, and instead the movie just goes back into the action sequence of, the Byrne stomping on his hands as he's holding onto the broken glass is like a perfect Schwarzenegger action sequence thing in my mind. And it smash cuts back to that, and you're ending. You recognize what movie you're watching.
Yeah, and they do a lot of hammy shit where it's like they have to have a moment where Gabriel Byrne explains why he's not killing him, and it's some stupid thing where it's like, I want you to see this. Like that. It's like, oh, why doesn't he just kill this fucking guy?
Yes. Yeah.
There's no reason for it. It all becomes very, silly.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't silly up to that point.
His crucifixion scene. But 100% agree. Like, would you have liked the movie without Schwarzenegger, I suppose? Like, I think that you'd have to go in a different direction and make it a little bit more interesting about what this whole devil situation is supposed to be. Because I'm kind of a sucker for the talking to the devil scenes. Like, the devil is Satan is such a compelling character that it's hard to fuck him up writing wise, really.
Yeah.
And I think that they actually succeed here up until the end, when it becomes, the devil can fail when it becomes this very ritualistic thing. Like, to me, the devil needs to, which Byrne does in the first, the devil needs to be very mocking of the traditions of Christianity in movies like this, I think. Like, he's supposed to represent the the sort of like dismissal of the whole aggrandizing of God, And I think that Satan effectively is written that way here. But when then he becomes like, everyone put on your robes, I'm going to lay the girl out on the table now, that's always a bad decision, in my opinion. That's a bad choice for the devil. On
the other hand, in The Devil's Advocate, you've got Al Pacino walking into a church, putting his finger into the holy water, and it starts to boil, which is A+. Yeah, that sacrifice scene was fucking hilarious too, because he goes through the secret door and opens up into the biggest boiler room in all of Manhattan.
Yeah,
and it's a bunch of Satanists hanging out listening to heavy metal. Like, this was written by my aunt.
Yeah. It's Tenacious D's
they
the
did
metal.
They did that more than once in this, where it's like they've got this big swooping score going, but underneath it you can hear "dig through the ditches," and like, just there's one point where it's literally Rob Zombie, but in this scene it's just a bunch of people in robes hanging out listening to heavy metal, man.
Yeah, and apparently Satan has 75% of New York on his payroll, which is kind of an interesting twist. Towards the end.
There's some kind of interesting stuff in there, as far as those things go. I thought that the idea that there was the Satanists and there was the priests, but there was also the other priests who were not bad guys in what they were trying to accomplish, but bad guys in that they were trying to kill this girl. Yeah,
their means were the actions they were choosing to take were not what Arnold Schwarzenegger wants.
Like, that was kind of interesting to have two, a third force that was looking at the solution from a different angle. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. But it doesn't, the one of the things that causes the movie to fail, I think, is that, like, it doesn't treat, because it's the Arnold action movie, the priests in the church are just sort of taking, like, the role of, like, Nazi in another movie. It's like they're just kind of cast as this force that you're not really supposed to think about. I think that it's like, what makes it so corny is the fact that it's not grounded in, like, any kind of examination of religion or anything. Like, there's no connection whatsoever beyond the fact that they keep repeating that Bible passage. There's no like moral argument You know, it's like they're
Right.
literally ninja priests that are like fighting people with guns and knives and stuff like that. So it's super corny. And I think in the non-Schwarzenegger movie, you have a little bit more room to do something like, because wasn't Byrne in Stigmata? Wasn't he in that?
He was.
Yeah, so he did
was.
a lot of these things too. But like that's more of like a religious take on stuff. And honestly, even though it's familiar to a lot of those movies, I would have preferred End of Days do that instead of the Arnold thing. And I think it's one of the reasons that it doesn't work. It's just the fact that it doesn't treat the religious thing as grounded enough to really be making any kind of point about anything or making a character sacrifice mean anything in the way that like Constantine does a better job of that for all that that's worth.
Yeah, and the end of this gets really kind of muddy and thematically weird too. Like the thing where he all of a sudden remembers he's in a church and throws his gun down so he can pray, I guess.
Yes, when
really
he finds
fucking
God.
hammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, you kind of get to the end of this movie and it feels like it's 2 clicks away from being like a Hallmark movie or something, or
Yes, yeah.
one of those the Christian made movies, because it's like he wins the day by praying,
Yep.
and then sacrificing himself by killing himself. It's
Yes.
It's funny when his daughter and wife showed up. I did say, usually we look down on suicide, but this one time we'll give you the good stuff.
The sacrifice is what it means. Yeah.
But even there though, it's like, I don't know. He's sacrificing himself, sure, but there's a difference between sacrificing yourself by doing a noble act and dying in the process of doing that noble act, and sacrificing yourself by fucking killing yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just killing yourself to stop the devil from raping the girl, I guess. Like it is a tough sell. I mean, I don't think that, you know, the guy's initials are JC, so he's clearly set up as Jesus.
Yep.
And I like the fact that I like the fact that the girl's name is Christine as well. It's like they just any Christ name they can get, they put it in there. But he's not. I mean, did you think that they set up his religious conflict enough at all? Like that needs to be part of the movie, right? And I didn't think that they touched on it at all.
I did really like the line. I kind of wish that they hadn't gone into more detail about his wife and his daughter dying.
Like the specifics of the murder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I really like that line where he says, I thought my daughter and wife should live, and God decided that they shouldn't.
Right.
Like where God had a different idea. That's a good, like, I feel like you don't need more than that to establish what this guy's emotional conflict is. But that's kind of the beginning and the end of it, you know, because once he gets into this, all of this other stuff, he just kind of, that sort of falls by the wayside until he needs to have a conversation about it. And then, you know, there's no real, like when he starts praying at the end, it doesn't feel like there's any character catharsis there.
No, it's not cathartic. No, it's not him coming to terms with anything. It's just the superpower. Yeah. Because I see a movie where the fallen alcoholic cop, right, who feels that God made the decision to take his family away from him. It's more of like a, you know, I think in a better movie, what he's doing as this sort of merc on the outside is more nebulous and, for lack of a better word, like evil than what it like. You kind of have to reflect his career path to be the devil on one shoulder and God on the other shoulder. Like he's the ex-cop, right? So that should be the God shoulder. And this vigilante merc stuff that he's doing is the devil talking to him. And I feel like the character's conflict is in that moment where he tries to figure out like what path he wants to go down, and they just don't. Arnold's a merc in this just because it gives him a chance to run around with a gun, really, you know?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, you know, I think it gets weird because I'm going to assume that he was a cop when his family was killed.
Yeah, because he testified as a cop. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, there's no, you know, argument in there about I was doing what I thought was the right thing and I was still punished for it, you know?
Right.
Which I think would play better into that sort of angle. Yeah, and like there's no
plays into what the Byrne character is trying to tempt him with, which is like, why does God let these bad things happen? Like, he's an asshole. That's Satan's argument in the movie.
Yeah, but yeah, there's no character.
No.
It reminded me of my favorite of the British Hammer Dracula movies, Dracula is Risen from the Grave, that has this amazing plot thing running through it where the main character is an atheist, and his girlfriend gets kidnapped by Dracula and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And Dracula has his helper in the movie is this priest who is now under the sway of Dracula, right? And so in order to defeat Dracula, they need to put a cross on the door of his castle and then pray over the cross. And so they put the cross on the thing and they're like, okay, Jimmy or whatever your name is, now you have to pray. And he's like, I can't. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of this shit.
Yep.
And so Dracula is going to, his power's coming back. And then the priest defies Dracula and regains the grace of God by praying, which obviously gets him killed. But he starts praying and does whatever needs to be done to destroy Dracula. And it's fucking great because it's all set up and there's no hackneyed thing where the atheist guy gets a vision or some shit and he's like, oh, now I see the glory of Christ or whatever. It's very consistent with the characters and they pay it off in a very satisfying way. This feels more like the hackneyed, the hacky version where it's like there's not a lot going on there. They're trying to set this thing up, and of course, they just have him turn at the end and be like, "Oh yeah, now he loves Jesus again" or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was really the thing. I did remember him killing himself. That was one thing. There's few things I remembered from this movie. I remembered him killing himself, and I remembered the weird sex scene with the woman and her daughter.
Is this your wife? Is this your daughter?
Yes. And so I knew he was going to kill himself. And so when he has that moment where he's looking around the church, they're showing all these statues and stuff, and it's like saints, Jesus. All of these people were killed for their religious beliefs. So clearly he's taking a cue from all of the martyrs that are surrounding him.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's getting, I don't know if the message is getting across where it's like, I'm going to throw myself on the sword of the angel Michael. I don't know.
No, they have to, the camera has to do the close up on the sword to show you that it's not the angel that's important. It's the sword that the angel is holding.
That kind of sums the whole movie up. It's not the angel that's important. It's the sword.
Yeah, it's the sword.
Also, small detail, a couple things. One, when they get into the lore of this, Rod Steiger says, every 1,000 years, the devil comes back and looks for a bride.
Yeah.
What happened 1,000 years ago? How did they stop him then?
Yeah.
Did he succeed? Is that what caused the Viking Age or something?
The plague came about. No, they don't get into that. And it's also one of the reviews I was getting, obviously wasn't taken by the movie, was just getting is the argument about like it's actually 2001 that this is the year that the devil should come back.
Oh,
It's not the year 2000.
Yes, well, that was the other thing that was funny is it's like it's by the stroke of midnight, and he's like, is the Eastern time?
Yeah,
and he's like, well, no, it's really more of just a placeholder. It's more of a metaphorical midnight, or whatever he says. That
when Armageddon happens, is it going to come across in phases of time zones, or if you live in California, do you just lose a couple hours of the millennium?
You're like, shit, I thought we had 3 hours left before they do the world.
I always forget about it. I forgot.
I was just going to say the other thing is, at the end, the devil has 45 seconds left to impregnate this woman.
Yeah, that's all I need, baby.
And he's just trying to kiss her.
Yes.
He's just pulling her face to his face. There's no movement in any other area of either of their bodies. And it's like, you know what? I don't think he knows how this works.
Yep. No, that's a, I I'm always a little struck by that. That's like it's along the lines of like violence is okay, but sex is not. I am always intrigued by the idea that, like, for all the murder and stuff that's going on, he can't rape the bride, right? Like, he can't rape the mother of his child, even though he's Satan and he's done a bunch of other horrible things. It's just it's the weirdness of like would you rather be raped or murdered? To me, seems a fairly obvious answer, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem obvious when you think about it that way. I don't know what that is, but it's along the lines of like the sex and violence thing. Like, you can show a bunch of people getting their heads blown off, but you can't show an exposed breast or something like that. It seems, I guess it's just been like culturally beaten into us that that's what you're supposed to expect, but it is sort of backwards. But it's a strange decision choice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, man.
Because he doesn't need her to fall in love with him or anything, right? There's no.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I feel maybe that was
I think there's also like that thing at the end where, because in the Devil's Advocate they actually do something similar, where he's. But I mean that all thematically is important, where it's like he's trying to convince Keanu Reeves to have sex with this person to create, the spawn of Satan or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's all about the fall of the character, attempting to break him.
Yeah.
But here when you've got Arnold in the last 15 seconds of the millennium or whatever, trying to kiss her instead of actually do what he's supposed to be doing. I think there's a thing there where it's like, well, we can't have Arnold Schwarzenegger on top of her tearing her clothes off.
Right, exactly.
There's no coming back from that, even if he is possessed by the devil. the moment he turns into an attempted rapist, people are going to lose sympathy.
We've ruined the movie. That's too bad. I forgot to read some patron thoughts, so I'll bust through a couple of these right now. Woodrow, if you guys want to leave thoughts about the movies and we'll discuss them, I'll get into the muscle memory of remembering to do this throughout the podcast. Patreon.com/The Penske File. Leave your thoughts there. Woodrow says, 42 minutes too long and the Devil's Queen doesn't know how to scream, but this is the role Gabriel Byrne was born to play. Eric Sanchuan says, this was written by the same guy who wrote Air Force One, definitely a concept first kind of guy. What if Harrison Ford were the president? That worked out okay. So how about this? Arnold versus the devil. And so Arnold shoots up the devil as if it was the T-1000, and it's stupid. And that would be okay, except someone told Arnold that he could act, and that's where and when this thing gets flushed down the toilet. Because we're asked to take this bullshit seriously, complete with an overwrought backstory and a scene where he fucking cries. And you're a choir boy compared to me. A choir boy! I like Arnold, and I like Peter Hyams, but this is the pits.
Could you imagine, like that? I think that kind of is a bit of what you're talking about, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jericho screams, "You're a choir boy compared to me," at the literal devil.
Yeah.
But we don't know what he's done.
Right.
We've never seen, like, we haven't seen him. He wasn't in Vietnam burning babies, Right. And even so, even if he was, it's the devil. He's done some shit.
Yeah.
He doomed humanity by making a woman eat an apple. Yep. I think that's a little bit worse than whatever Black Ops shit you did in Nanda Parbat or wherever the hell you were.
Yeah, you really have to sell the evilness of your character if he's going to compare himself to Satan. Kyle Bear says, end of days, I bought this film on DVD when you announced you'd be covering it many moons ago. Now, after years of sitting on my shelf, gaining an almost mythic status, I finally watched it. Turns out, load of old bollocks. It's a mighty strange mix of genres. It could have been a decent religious horror film or a Seven-style detective story, but instead it's both combined with an Arnie action flick. Santa Claus would describe it as a kind of cosmic gumbo that almost moves to the beat of jazz. The highlight is undoubtedly seeing British icon Miriam Margolyes in a fist fight with Schwarzenegger. Gabriel Byrne is having fun pissing gasoline and enjoying mother-daughter sandwiches with a side of shunting. Although the best depiction of the devil on screen remains a tie between Robert De Niro and Angel Heart and Dave Grohl in the video for Tenacious D's tribute. And then finally,
I was just thinking, is this a better? See, this is what I would have done if I was Arnold.
Yeah.
And maybe this is too similar to the Terminator move, but I think maybe this would have worked for him.
Yeah.
I would have asked to play the devil. I think Schwarzenegger as the devil would have been a better move.
Oh. I don't. I'm really. Do you think it wouldn't be a laughable performance from him? You wouldn't be like, "What the fuck is this?"
It might be, but it's. I mean,
it's certainly more interesting. I'll give you that.
Like, is anything Gabriel Byrne is doing in this? Is anything too subtle for Arnold Schwarzenegger to do?
No, I wonder if he would, because Arnold has a hard time avoiding cartoon Arnold. You know, like especially at this point in his career when he's given a chance to like really sort of like stretch his wings. I don't know. I certainly would have rather watch that than the movie that we got. I just don't think that he would be able to do it. I was actually trying to think of like, of this era, right? Like the late 90s. Is there a movie that you think Arnold should have done that he did not get?
Instead of, like, you mean instead of this specifically or just in general?
Yeah, like instead of Keanu getting the Matrix, if he's Neo, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking through a list of them. Arnold could have done Speed, I think.
That's interesting. Maybe. He's kind of big for a bus.
He's I can't get out the door.
Please sit down. You can't get through the aisle.
When the little bomb blows up the stairs and the guy falls through, it's just him and he gets stuck in the hole, and it's like,
shoot the hostage.
I'm just looking at a quick bunch of them that he could have done.
He's not old enough.
He could have been in Independence Day.
Playing who?
He could be the Will Smith character.
Yeah, I don't think it works as well with him.
Just looking quickly here. That's pretty much.
He's too young to be the Sean Connery role in The Rock.
Yes, he is.
You know what he might have been good in? Again, different movie, and it's just a tough sell because like this is a movie full of scrawny guys. He might have been good in Con Air as he Nicolas Cage role, but still, it's like, you know, fucking monster Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Steve Buscemi. And John Malkovich.
That's kind of the weird thing about his career. Like the Arnold movies that we know, right, that we accept that he was good in, just try to strip away anything you know about Schwarzenegger and you see this guy as an actor. He doesn't fit in anything, you know? Like it's more testament to his like charisma and everything that he managed to make stuff work, but it's I think he's just weird in that way that you could plug him in, and if you are just able to get past his sort of weird accent and everything else that's weird about him, I think he kind of works in a few different movies maybe. But Con Air is good. I like that one.
I think that maybe the trouble with him playing
Face Off.
That would be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting.
We're going to have to take your face off and also do some bodily cosmetic surgery to really make you... Unless it was, could you imagine Nicolas Cage with the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger, or the face of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the body of Nicolas Cage? I think maybe the problem with him playing the devil in this specifically is it's the next thing he does after Batman and Robin, where he played Mr. Freeze.
Okay.
And I don't know. So apparently, this is a couple years after that, and he couldn't get any roles, weirdly enough, because he had just had major heart surgery.
Oh.
And so they wouldn't insure him because they didn't think that he could do...
Was he doing his own stunts before this?
I mean, some probably, but not. I mean, you watch enough of his movies, you can see the stunt guys a mile away. But yeah, I think it was just the gruelingness of the shoots. People didn't know what he was going to be able to do or not do.
Yeah.
And I guess when they were shooting this, they had insurance guys come down, and once they saw him looking fine, then after that he didn't have a problem getting more offers. But I don't know if maybe Batman and Robin left a sour taste because it was so ill received. But like, again, I almost kind of don't count that in his filmography because it's Batman
Yep.
and it's such a very specific Batman.
Yep.
But like he's never up until this point, he's never really played a villain since the Terminator. And Mr. Freeze he's a cartoon character, but like he's never played like a villain, a capital V villain. And I think it would have been interesting for him. It might have been a good move here because the devil is someone that he could sink his teeth into and go pretty big,
right,
and still have it work.
So I guess we'll close this out with, what is your Mount Rushmore of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies?
Ooh. 4, right?
Yeah,
for
4 of
going
them.
literal. I think for me, it's the 2 Terminators, Predator, and True Lies.
Oh, okay. I think
I'm sure there's another good one in there I'm forgetting, but
I'll go original Terminator, Predator, Total Recall.
Total Recall.
And
That's tough. Yeah.
Do I have to put T2?
I mean, you don't have to.
I'm just looking at his list real quick. I think it is. So it's the 2 Terminators, Predator, and Total Recall.
Honestly, I think I'm probably the same because I forgot about Total Recall, and I would definitely put that in the place instead of True Lies if I had to swap one out.
Yeah, yeah. But he's had an interesting career. It's not terrible. This movie's terrible, but outside of that, he's done some interesting things as an actor. So I think we put up the poll for what we're going to cover for his B-roll. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. There's one last comment here. I'll read Tom Hickey's comment. Without Schwarzenegger, this could have been just another forgotten late 90s supernatural horror flick. At least the first half feels that way. Nothing new or original there. But no, somebody had a crappy script and Arnold needed something to do, so now it's a Schwarzenegger film, and it doesn't work. I feel most bad for that subway conductor at the end. There he is, shuttling 0 people around New York City in the closing moments of the second millennium when he thinks he ran over and killed 2 people. He fortunately realizes that they're alive, and then he sees some random people holding flashlights. Then the guy he thought he ran over takes an assault rifle and shoots and kills the flashlight people. This must have been a confusing sequence of events, but at least he gets his empty train moving again. But then his heart is ripped out by the devil. I hope that guy pulls through and has a better new year.
I will say, I did think the couple effects that they had like that were good. The chest punch was really good.
Yep.
And when he punches through Udo Kier's head, that was pretty good too.
Unkeiner Eier. That's it. So I think we put up a poll, which is not yet decided for what we're going to do, but it looks like it's going to be Last Action Hero is going to be the B-roll. It's at 75% to 25% for Red Heat. So it's Last Action Hero is going to be the Arnold B-roll. We'll put that on Patreon at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. That was your suggestion, so you should be happy about that. We'll see if it is the turning point in his career. I had never seen Red Heat. I watched the trailer. I'm not sure if it's interesting enough for me to watch, but I was mostly interested. I had never heard of it before, and it's in his prime run of Schwarzenegger.
That's the thing is, anytime I think about that movie, I think like, oh, that was before he really hit, but that was like the mid '80s, right?
Yeah, that's late '80s actually. That's
oh really? Wow,
isn't it? Let me see here. I was under the understanding that is like right in his. Yeah, it's after Predator, Terminator.
Wow.
Running Man. It's before Twins and Total Recall.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe I'll just watch it by myself and I'll have thoughts about it when we watch Total Last Action Hero. But that's it. Patreon.com/thepenskyfile, Last Action Hero. That's where you're going to find it. And then after that, Clay, do you have any suggestions? We'll think about what we want to do after Arnold, I think. I was thinking more literally less of a big actor, but like a small scale actor. We'll see how it is.
Mark Ruffalo.
What's I don't even know what would his worst what would his worst one be? I'm so curious now. But I'm definitely remembering the way that this podcast works, which is that there's a huge schism between the best and the worst, and it's a fine line between making a good movie and making a shitty movie. Maybe it's not a fine line, but there's certainly a line that you can cross, and your movie becomes quite shitty at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Do you have anything you want to say?
Check out my comic that's out right now, Hardstyle Juice. It's if you go to hardstylejuice.com, it'll take you to the Amazon page. If you have Amazon Prime, you can read it for free. It's a digital comic. issue 4 is coming out, 4 of 5, relatively soon, July 16th, I think. And check out Rotten Horror Picture Show and Badass, still going strong.
That's it. Thanks, everybody. Leave some thoughts or comments wherever you listen to this about what the actor or director should be next. Oh, I guess we alternate, don't we? So it should be a director next. So,
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, list out directors that we haven't covered yet. You can check out the show at thepenskyfile.com/realriperealrotten. Let us know what we haven't covered. Pick a director. Let us know. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of End of Days. We'll be back on the Patreon with Last Action Hero. See you later.